Hello and salutations, summoners. Welcome to the Casual Tryhard Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm your shy guy from Uruguay, Anthony Rico Plays 1723. And right next to me, as always, the co-host who trolls the most, Kristos. How are you today, bud?
We're doing fantastic. Today's a great day.
Perfect. Today was a super fun day at work. I am very glad to be here chilling with my friends. So in the past, ladies and gentlemen, we have been very honored, very blessed to have awesome guests come on the show. We had Jay Sensational, top 16 in the first seasonal, top 3 in the NA server. Yasuo, self-proclaimed main, come onto the show. We also had multiple day 2 RPTQ, IPTQ champion, Friday night Magic Demolisher, Control God Logan on the show. Today, we have a very special guest. He is one of the top Legends of Runeterra content creators, top 4 of the recent Riot Grand Prix, and most importantly, maybe the best beard in the Runeterra scene. Today we have Saucy Mailman on with us. How are you today, Saucy?
I'm doing good. That was funny. I liked it. Good intro. I'll take the beard compliment.
Man, it's one of the best beards on this scene for sure. First off, Saucy, I wanted to make sure that we gave you a big congratulations, man. It looks like you reached it. Because I know recently you did announce that you are now a full-time content creator.
Yep.
That is absolutely phenomenal. I know that is something that Kristos and I hope to achieve one day, right, Kristos?
That would be a very nice turn of events.
Yeah. Hopefully, we're trying. But along that end, Saucy, if you can just let us know, man, like, how did you get up to that point? I know in the Twitter video you were saying you've been kind of doing this for 5 years, kind of like your background in content creation. And then how did that turn into, Legends of Runeterra? I know that Kristos and I come from a very heavy Magic the Gathering background. So nice. Just how did you get here to this point?
Yeah, so I've been doing content creation for about 5 years now. I originally started streaming, funny enough, I started streaming Destiny. So
wow, okay.
Yeah, I was playing a lot of Destiny with coworkers that I worked with. We were playing a lot of PvP, and I did it just so we had a way to record our games so we could watch them back at work while we were supposed to be working and have a good time and all that. But then, so I started, I really enjoyed it. It's just before that, I used to be in a touring band for many years.
Let's go.
I like entertaining. I just like people and having a good time. Yeah, I did it as a hobby for a couple years. Then decided I kind of really liked it. So at the time I was playing a lot of Hearthstone.
Okay.
And I actually come from Magic the Gathering as well. I've been playing since Mirrodin was my first set.
Let's go.
So yeah, 2002 or 2003 when Mirrodin came out, something like that.
2003.
So been playing Magic since then. I'm a huge card nerd, crazy addicted, and I was going to a lot of Grand Prix and doing the whole traveling for the Magic thing. But I don't like MTGO. MTGO is I didn't like the online interface.
It's an Excel spreadsheet. That's what it is. You play Magic on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, it really was. So I was like, well, I like streaming and I like card games, so I got into Hearthstone. Did that for a long time. And then I was getting really burnt out and sick of Hearthstone for a lot of different reasons.
Sure.
And that's at about the same time when Legends of Runeterra was going into its first closed beta. And I reached out to one of their community managers and I was like, hey, I know I'm a Hearthstone streamer. I want to check this game out. And they gave me a key.
Awesome.
I did one stream of it and became so addicted. I was like, this reminds me of things I like in Magic. I get to respond to my opponent.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So I fell in love with Runeterra, and I stopped as soon as I could. I stopped Hearthstone altogether and just dove head first into Runeterra.
I really do think Runeterra is the perfect bridge between Hearthstone and Magic.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Like, Magic's a paper game that has now tried to be online, but Runeterra does it so much better.
Yeah.
110%. Actually, Jay Sensational, the other guest that we had, also came from a very heavy Hearthstone background, and he also made the same mention that once I was able to react to my opponent's spells, that was it. Like, I knew I was hooked. And it's funny because, coming from Magic, we're kind of used to that, but it's interesting to see how people from other card games just love the interactiveness.
Yeah, I agree. Now, like when I first started playing it, I would tell people, like, because I love Magic. Magic's always going to be one of my favorite games, but I'm like, this feels like if they were to make the game of Magic in a modern time. That's just like for a digital market. It's just how it kind of feels.
100% agree.
Absolutely. And then I would also say that even though Magic did come out with Arena, it just doesn't have the same crispness, the same. I think it was Kristos who said you can run Runeterra off a toaster. Like that's how amazing everything's optimized, and just Runeterra is just absolutely sensational. And that's why we wanted to start this kind of podcast, so that other Magic, specifically Magic players, can start like kind of converting to kind of see that Runeterra and Riot are doing a phenomenal job with this card game. Speaking along those lines, Saucy, I know that you are a Riot partner, which is awesome. Did they come to you and be like, hey, like, you're doing a great job with the Runeterra streams, so we kind of want you to be an ambassador type of deal? How did that come about?
So my relationship and I guess partnership with Riot. So when the game was in its first closed beta, I actually I started a podcast, and it was the first Runeterra podcast that was out.
Nice.
No one had thought to do it yet. So at that time, we actually reached out to some of the developers. We reached out to like Umbridge and a few people, and we're like, "Hey, we just started the first Runeterra podcast. Do you want to be on it?" And we just maintained a relationship, and I kind of just became friends with a lot of people that work on the game, and just kind of like casually would, just chat and talk about whatnot. And when they started, so they've had the League partnership program forever, because League of Legends has been around since the dawn of time. And when they were adding Runeterra and Teamfight Tactics into that, they asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I said, why not? Yeah, absolutely.
And because you were you are a Riot partner, they asked you to be on this Grand Prix, correct? This weekend? Last weekend?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think it was you, Jeff Hooglin, BBG, Amazonian, Control, Swim, and please forgive me, I think I'm missing like one or two more.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people. Alon was there. I only played against BBG, Swim, and Amy, so I don't know everyone else who's in there because I didn't even keep the bracket up like a scrub lord. But yeah, there was a bunch of people. It was this is the second one they did for Runeterra. So they have a monthly Grand Prix, and they alternate between League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, and Legends of Runeterra. And I always play in the TFT and the Runeterra ones because those are games I actually play, and I don't play any League, so I don't do those ones. But yeah, this is the second Runeterra.
League's a time.
Yeah, we mentioned before that we love the lore in League, obviously, because it's extending itself to Runeterra, but I do not have those mechanical skills to play such a game. Like I've tried, it just does not work out well.
Yeah, and you have to rely on other people. I'm not as good at that.
Fair. Completely fair. So during the Grand Prix, Saucy, did y'all like kind of get together and talk about what decks that you wanted to come out with? Because your lineup was a good time. Like without a doubt was a good time. That Teemo deck was I don't know if you would have made the choice if it was a super competitive environment. So did y'all get together and be like, hey, let's not all bring, TF Fizz all the time?
Not everyone. So like I'm good friends with most of the people who are involved, and like I'd like pop in like Nick's stream and give him a hard time, or Amy and whatnot. And so we didn't have anything like that. We did. There were some people who brought TF Fizz, of course, and their BBG brought like a real. I think he ended up winning. I'm pretty sure. And he brought a pretty sweaty lineup. He had Aphelios, TF, Thresh, Nasus, and something else that I banned. Oh, Lisa and Zoe. So his was pretty sweaty.
Yeah.
Did if you don't mind just telling the viewers what lineup you brought, just so they know.
Yeah, so the lineup I put together, so the deck that was mentioned, it's a Trundle, Teemo, Concurrent Timelines combo deck that's making use of the whole Trundle making ice pillars that you use with Concurrent Timelines to get value. It's a pretty meme deck, but it's actually pretty decent. I would honestly say it's a pretty solid tier 2 deck. We were climbing with it today all day on stream, and it's doing pretty well. I think I have like a 57-58% win rate with it, so it's decent. Then I also brought Lysandra Swain mid-range, and I brought Kindred Nasus combo.
But I think I saw some of your stream. By the way, folks, you need to watch him play. It's such a good time. Not only is it like high level plays and he's thinking everything out, but like he's doing that while also being super interactive with chat. Like, I've never seen that type of combo before, because you're either usually one or the other, right? You're either so into the game that you don't really have time to deal with chat, or you end up dealing too much with chat, and then you look on the screen and you're getting your tuchus handed to you. But Saucy does a really good job in terms of playing the game, making the right calls, and also interacting with chat. There was like a moment where you were in you had a very difficult decision. You looked at chat, like you made a joke, and then you went back, made the play to go all in on Teemo, and then you eventually won that match. I think it was against Swim, where you just kept on putting all the gems on Teemo and just smacked for 8 and was like, if he has it, he has it, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. Let's go. And it turned out that he didn't have it, or that you had the right answer to it, and it was just a fun time to see.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Did you find that, in that type of environment with all the other streamers, did you find it like, are you the personality that's like super sweaty and wants to win, or are you out there to really have a good time?
Nah, like I'm not a super competitive try-hard player anymore. I used to be back when I was like grinding Magic, but now I'm all about entertainment and having a fun time. If I was trying to seriously win, I would not have brought the Timeline deck. I definitely would have brought something more reasonable, like probably TF Aphelios, honestly.
Gotcha.
Because I think the other two decks are actually super solid. I think Lysandra Swain is underrated right now. Deck is really, really strong.
You didn't get to play it, right? They banned it every time?
Yeah, they banned that deck every time.
Yeah, they knew. They knew what was happening.
And it destroys TF Fizz, so it's a solid one.
I actually really like the Kindred Nasus deck.
Yeah, that deck is a blast.
Yeah. It may not be like the best thing ever, but playing it is really cool. I'm always like a sucker for those kind of decks.
Yeah, I think so. I brought that deck specifically as a tournament deck. I teched it a little bit more towards what I thought I was going to see. I think if you were to be laddering, I think the Thresh Nasus decks is more considerate, or more more consistent. Yeah, more consistent against a wide field. But I brought that one specifically to beat the other Nasus mirrors, because I knew there'd be people bringing other Nasus decks. Mm-hmm. But I think Kindred Nasus does really well against the Thresh Nasus version.
Like thinking of it as like trying to beat the meta that you're expecting is a very reasonable thing to do for these tournaments. Like if you can metagame what your opponents are going to be doing, then by all means.
And especially because you get to ban a deck, so you can build a lineup that, like, if there's one deck you specifically can't beat, you're like, well, I'll just ban it.
No, thank you, ban.
Yep.
So were you happy with how you placed? I know that last game against BBG to like lose in that manner was definitely tilting, and I'm actually very impressed on how you handled it. But overall, would you say it was a successful event?
Yeah, I had a blast. I had a really good time. I'm not super into tournament play much anymore, but since it was like an invite tournament, which is people that I did like, and it's like they're all essentially my friends.
Right.
Like, it was just hanging out. There was no like bad blood or like anything like that. Like BBG brought the better lineup. He was definitely wanting to win, and he played better. He like the last game. I mean, he ended up having 48 burble fish, and that's hard to beat.
Yes. So I was looking at that game, and your error was allowing him to draw the third burble fish there.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what you were thinking.
I know. If I didn't let him draw so many burble fish, I was like, all right, I set up because I'm like, I guarantee he has two. My hand read was that he had two burble fish, and I'm like, if he has two, I stay alive and I win next turn. But then he top decked the third one, and I was like, damn it! BBG, better at drawing cards than I am. It's TF, right? The whole deck is nothing but card draw. So.
Yeah. As someone from a Magic background, do you think the best thing to be doing is drawing cards?
It's my favorite thing to do. I'm a control player.
Here it is. Player. Here we go.
Yep. I'm happiest playing draw go. That's what I want to do.
Oh, beautiful. Love it.
Yep.
Here we go. Another control player. Yes.
It's addicting. Drawing cards is addicting.
That's the best.
It's the best.
All we need is a way to have no maximum hand size in Runeterra, and I'm set.
Oh, my
I'm
goodness.
sure I can imagine like seeing an enchantment-esque effect where you just have no max hand size, and that is, sign me up. That is the dream.
Yep. There'll be a landmark or something that does it.
Yeah.
So now we'll move on to the next segment here, Kristos. This is gonna be you. The segment we're gonna call Kristos Calls. So I know that in the past shows, Kristos and I have made certain, meta calls. We've said that certain cards would be good. Some of them we've been right, which is great to hear. But others we've been absolutely dead wrong. LeBlanc.
Weird.
But so Kristos, I know there's been some new like cosmic plays. Really nice guy on Twitter. He kind of pulls all together all the meta stuff for us, and we get to analyze it from there. But Kristos, what do you got for us?
So I called this as soon we did like a Shurima kind of breakdown when the set came out, and we called Rite of Negation being busted like as soon as I looked at that card. And I'm glad to see that it has such a high win rate, and it's so prevalent in at least my lighting experience. Like mid plat to like low diamond has been kind of centered around this card. I don't know if it's the same for you, Saucy. But
Rite of Negation's great.
Yeah,
it's like one of the key pieces to why the Nasus decks are so good.
Yeah, like it's a glue kind of card. I think that's like a fair term for this kind of stuff, like the cryptic commands of the world, and Doomkeeper being such a prevalent aggro card.
Yep. There right now, if you look at the stats of all the new cards that came out, those two cards are, I think, Doomkeeper's in 53% of all Shurima decks, which is not surprising at all. And then Rite of Negations is like 47, 48. So I was glad to see that those two cards, they did what we thought they were going to do. Saucy, were there any cards that you made good calls on?
I think I make pretty neutral calls. I don't think there's anything that I got specifically wrong. Like all the cards I thought were going to be good have been good. I knew LeBlanc would be a solid card. I just think it's a pretty boring card.
Yep.
That's kind of it.
Kristos went on a soapbox rant on LeBlanc.
Yeah. Like LeBlanc to me is like a spellcaster. I don't know if you've like delved too much into the League of Legends lore, but that's like what she's like, a schemer kind of politician behind the scenes type thing, and not the 5/2 with quick attack. So I don't know what people wanted exactly, because can't read people's minds. But I think like she's just not. They failed on the flavor aspect, and Riot normally is really good about that sort of thing. So I was kind of let down. That's my main gripe with her.
Were there cards that you definitely didn't see coming at all, Saucy?
So I actually got to beta test and play with the cards before they were.
Oh, so you already
announced.
knew. Nice.
Yeah. So Riot invited some of us to some early beta tests. We tried out the 2v2 mode before, but like I knew about a lot of these cards before they were even announced. So that's why I was like, Lysandra has been my favorite card for weeks before the expansion came out. So I got a little bit of an advantage. So the things that did surprise me, this is actually a pretty interesting thing I can talk about. So in our little test play group meta, because there was about 10 of us or so from NA, and in our play group meta, the strongest champions were Renekton and Jarvan.
Really
interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So we were all like BBG and I. We had like we were talking about how Renekton is probably imbalanced. He's so good, and we were thinking that Jarvan was going to be the most prevalent champion on ladder for a while, just because of how strong he was in our little play group. But then it's just so different having the rest of the world playing and like how things have changed to where those are like pretty poopy champions.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like I've seen this happen in so many like playtesting groups where we're like really high on this one card, and then there are just people so much smarter than you, all around the world that just like you're like, no, this is dumb. You break it in some other way.
I love Overwhelm, Saucy. So I've been playing basically Renekton and Sejuani.
Nice.
Basically this whole time. So I've been having a good time so far.
It's a solid deck.
But now with like every time the meta changes, so now they're kind of like targeting that deck a little bit. So I've been trying to be more aggressive. So now I play Renekton and Draven together. And I've been today. I've climbed. I did quite a bit of climbing, so I've been happy so far. I know in last week's episode, I was like crying because I didn't feel like Renekton was not good enough. But I was talking to Kristos about this before. And these, at this point of the expansion, it's super important to kind of find a deck you like and then just stick to that deck so you can learn the ins and outs of that deck and then learn the ins and outs of the other decks that you're playing. I felt like I was too quick to keep switching, and because I kept on switching, I couldn't evaluate, the strengths and weaknesses or the right calls to make when you're playing against certain decks. Did you kind of already know, Saucy? Did you know that, hey, Lysandra and Trundle, that's where I want to be?
Yep. Lysandra Trundle was I think it was the first YouTube video I came out with before the set dropped of like, this is my go-to deck. I like Lysandra a lot. I had a Lysandra Talia deck that's also pretty fun. It's obviously not the best because Talia, as we all know, is not the strongest champion.
Right.
But you can do some fun stuff with it, like copying Blighted Ravines and stuff like that.
I was watching your stream just before we started this recording when you were doing the Howling Abyss Talia deck, and that is some spicy meatball that I'm going to play that deck later today. Guaranteed.
It's a fun one, dude. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, seeing stuff like that is just really cool. I always hop around various Twitch streamers to see if they're like playing some new brew that I could maybe work on and innovate, and I love seeing stuff like that in this community especially.
Yes, I would say that this community is really good at creating new spicy stuff and making it the best that it can be. So Saucy, now that I know that you're a control player, and we had a control player on last show, do you think he gave us his opinion? So I want to ask you, do you think now with the appearance of Lysandra, like Runeterra has a control deck now? Because I know before they kind of had Anivia, but I would say that this Lysandra build is more of your traditional, coming from MTG background, more of your traditional control deck. Not exactly your draw go type of thing, but as close I think as we're gonna get here in Runeterra.
Yeah, it's funny. I personally feel like this is one of the more diverse metas we've had, just because if you put in the time and you commit to learning a deck, you can do well and you can hit master with aggro, mid-range, combo, control, whatever you enjoy. You just have to actually play the game. You may not have as easy of a climb as someone playing TF Fizz, but
Sure.
like we have a few viable control decks. And actually, other than Lysandra and all of her, kit that she provides, Shadow Isles is just as a whole in a really great spot for control decks as well. If you look at the Nasus Thresh, Nasus Kindred decks, those are control decks at heart. Like they're all removal, and then you win with a combo.
Right. That's true.
Even the timelines decks too, like the Ledros Dreadway deck, it is a control deck as well.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it like that. But yeah, you're right.
When the deck is 99% removal and then a combo finish, it's pretty controlling.
It's control.
That's a really good sign of just healthy design and overall metagame, is when you can play just about anything and get to the highest level. Like this, the rock paper scissors of aggro control mid range is in full effect, and that's the best place to be.
Perfect. So I think this is going to be a good segue to the new segment that we're going to start doing on the show. We're going to call it Overrated, Underrated. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to ask each one of my guests, or give them rather a statement, and they're going to tell me whether that idea is overrated or underrated and why they believe so. So, Saucy, since you are the guest, you get the privilege to go first. Nerfing TF Fizz, that idea, overrated or underrated?
I think it's merited. If you look at TF Fizz as a deck, I think it's Twisted Fate that's the problem. Fizz is obviously, I don't think, an issue at all. It's just he's strong, is an elusive finisher in a deck that draws 200,000 cards. Twisted Fate is really, really frustrating to play against for a lot of people. Like, it's a feels bad because you can level him up either the turn you play him or the next turn at the latest. And it's funny because it was originally, supposed to be a champ that's kind of harder to level up, but now there's so much draw in that deck.
Right.
Like, there's nothing you can do in a lot of matchups, and it feels really bad.
I'm inclined to agree there. It's TF's Fizz is annoying, like every game that he's in, but TF is the real kind of, I don't want to say rancid, but kind of problematic card in that deck.
Okay, Kristos, so we're going to go to you on this one. Overrated, underrated. Riot has to do something about the Ledros Timeline Dreadway combo.
I think overrated. I don't think combo is a bad thing to have in a metagame. I know a lot of people don't like it, but there are some players who absolutely adore it, and I think they should have something to go into. So I don't even think you change anything really. Maybe if it's Nessus Kindred specifically, maybe nerf Kindred a little bit. But the combo is fine as it is, I would think. I don't see it too often on ladder, so I can't speak for its win rate or play percentage, but I think it's fine to have.
Saucy, what do you think?
So I hate the deck. So I really don't like the Ledros Dreadway timelines combo interaction. And it's not even like the combo itself that I don't like. I don't like decks that reward you for not having to be a good player. So
Sure.
the entire game, like, you do nothing, and then you just turn 9, play one card, and win the game. And that's just a pretty feels bad moment to me. When they could just be playing like garbage the entire game, do nothing, and then just win out of nowhere. Like, I think that feels pretty bad. So I like the idea of buffing Dreadway and making it an 8-mana card.
Okay. We're going back to you, Saucy, on this, on the next one. Overrated, underrated, Teemo.
Definitely underrated. Best card in the game.
Best card in the game.
Easy.
Sorry, I had to...
Easy!
I had to ask. For folks who don't know, like, what Sejuani and Renekton are to me, Teemo is much more to Saucy. Saucy actually put on his Teemo hat while he was playing on the tournament, and it was just this funny moment. It's such a good time to watch a stream. It really is.
Best. He's so great. And before this is going to come up, because it keeps coming up, someone's going to say, but what do you mean, Teemo? Lissandra's in the game and makes Teemo unplayable. I have never lost to Lissandra playing Teemo Timelines Control. By the way, 100% win rate against Lissandra.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here.
Easy.
So I wanted to move on to kind of talking about like a little bit more about the cards that we kind of like from this expansion. You know, I asked everyone to kind of have like 3 cards in mind that they really liked for different reasons. So I'm going to go with you first, Kristos. What would you say is a card that you definitely enjoyed while you've been laddering? And if you say TF, I'm going to...
No. She isn't good, but I really like the way Talia decks play.
Okay.
Just the whole like build up my resources, and then put Talia on the board, and she kind of goes and takes off from there. I think is a really cool kind of deck building constriction, and I love to see that sort of stuff in games. I like a deck building challenge, so having cards like that with clear payoffs after putting in the work is something that I look for in most formats. So Talia is like my number 1 card from Shurima for sure.
I think Talia has the capability of being a top rated champion once more expansions come out, because I really feel there's going to be a time where like Riot's going to come out with a broken landmark, and they're not going to realize how it combines so well with Talia, and she's gonna skyrocket back to tier 1. So I feel like,
hope.
Yeah, I really hope. I think she has there's more coming from her. What do you have as number 2?
If we're going for champions, probably Azir. I know he's kind of rancid, but that's okay. I love Azir. I love the desert theme. I really enjoy how he has the level up with all of the landmarks, and summoning units and kind of running people over is my jam. So it's probably Azir for number 2. And then number 3, even though we talked about it already, is the end-all be-all of counterspell we have for Rite of Negation. That card is fantastic in every sense. Even though we talked about it as a problem, I love it to death. I'll keep playing it as long as I can.
Saucy, what do you got?
My 3 favorite cards. So I'm going to go non-champions because I've already talked too much about Lissandra. So Blighted Ravine is probably one of my favorite cards of the set.
For sure. That card is so good.
Mm-hmm. It's super good. Like, it's very, like, there's a lot to it, and it's a very interesting card looking at it. Like, you can't use spell mana with it like you can on Avalanche, but you can kill things at the start of the turn before they can react, which is huge.
Yes. I think it was a couple of days ago, where, like, in my head, I'm like, I bet they're going to do a Blighted Ravine, and I got my troll chant. So what are you going to do about it? And then they play it, and then I'm like, okay, I'm about to react. I'm going to get him. And then my things died. And I was like,
Yep.
oh no. Mistakes happened.
It's like if you're out there having trouble with like Fiora Shin, especially, this is the card that beats that deck every time. Like, try and keep those caretakers alive. Oh wait, you can't.
Yeah. What do you have for number 2?
Three Sisters, another Freljord card because I'm biased towards Freljord. But the card, anything with a modal ability like this that provides value at any point in the game is really, really strong. So I think that's a really, really good. If you're paying 1 mana to get to choose between 3 relevant different modes, really, really, really like that one as well.
So you see, Kristos, maybe I can do this because in our top 5 calls that in a podcast episode we did before, we made like, hey, make top 3 cards that you think are going to be really, really good. And I chose Three Sisters. I saw it for its capability in control matches, in control decks. But then I also have Three Sisters in my kind of mid-range aggro deck. And you're absolutely right. Just the ability to use it for different options, like... Yeah. sometimes I'm getting smacked by an 8/8, the 8M overwhelm, and I'm like, all right, well, this situation, I'm gonna frostbite it so my creature doesn't die. And then there are other situations I'm like, well, I gotta go for it here. Let me use Fury of the North to get the extra points of overwhelm damage so I can win. So I agree with you 100%. The ability to have a card with different options is super awesome.
Yeah, and even Entomb is one that's surprisingly better than people expect, especially because they're looking at, like the 2-out mana Hourglass card, like, well, this one costs 5 mana. But there's been so many games, like, people go to level up their Nasus or something, or like today I had a game where someone played a Jinx and played the whatever the dude is that discards your hand and does 3, and I just entombed the Jinx in response so it wouldn't level up. Like, there's a lot of things you can do with that just off of Three Sisters, and it's one that I've been playing a lot in my Freljord Teemo decks because no one expects that card from a Teemo deck.
Right.
And I've lethaled so many people with the, just getting the 3/4 buff.
Nice. And then number 3.
Number 3 is going to have to be concurrent timelines. I know it's a hotly debated topic. I think the card itself is completely fine and not super toxic and degenerate outside of the Ledros Dreadway deck. And in a value toolbox deck, it is super, super, super cool and really sweet. It's a lot of fun to play.
So there you have it, folks. We don't touch it. We don't touch that card.
Yeah, I think the timelines is fine, except for it needs an animation. It's ugly when you play it and nothing happens.
It's just like, why?
It's like, oh, I guess I played a card. That's cool.
So for my top 3, I don't know why, and I think I love this card because I think it makes me think I'm smarter than I actually am. But Ancient Preparations, the 1 mana, you get to predict, countdown 2, then creates a Clockling. So for my Renekton decks, I've been having trouble because I feel like with the build that I have, it's one of those you need to draw the right half of your deck type of thing, where you have your threats and you have your enablers, and if you don't draw the right portion of it at the right time, it can get you into trouble. So I decided to put in Ancient Preparations in there, and at least in my head, you guys can disagree with me, but when I draw my hand and I play that on turn 1, it's great because if I look at my hand and I'm like, okay, I see Renekton and I also play Sivir in my deck. So if I'm like, okay, I see a Renekton, I see a Sivir, but guess what? I don't see a Sandstone. I don't see an Exhaust. I don't see the, oh my gosh, what's the name? The +2, you give your unit +2/+0 and a vulnerable to your opponent.
Plus Predator?
Yes. So if I don't see my enablers, I get to be like, all right, here's my predict, and there it is. Boom, take it. Or sometimes it's the other way, where I have all my enablers, but I don't see my Renekton. I don't see my Sivir. So boom, I get my Sivir. And it gives me a body after the countdown 2. So it's not like I didn't do anything. So if I do it on turn 1, by when I get it, the attack token back, I have a body on top of it. So it's a card that's really impressed me. And as I said, I liked to play things that make me feel smart. So when I get to choose one of those 3 cards and be like, aha, now I have a complete hand, I absolutely love it. My second card for me is going to be Reggaeton Renekton. I love that champion to death. He does exactly what I love. Overwhelm, I get the challenge, and his animations are absolutely OP. So I love swinging in with that big alligator crocodile. Yeah, so my third card has to be Ascendance Rise. When I get to have all my champions out with Azir, Renekton, Nessus out, and my opponent's like, oh, I don't know what my opponent's doing. Like, what's he doing over there? And then I hit them with the 7 mana Sentence Rise, and I level everything up. I know I can't see my opponent, but I know their jaw is dropping to the ground because they're like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm about to lose to this card. But it's been a lot of fun. Have you guys played against that card? Or am I just crazy?
I don't see it too often. I did see it once and it popped off and I died. So that'll happen. But outside of that one time, it's been played, and then I win like the turn after.
How about you, Saucy?
It's fun. It is definitely very fun. It's not. Well, the problem is it's not necessarily that card itself is bad. It's that the deck it goes in is bad.
Yes.
Once Shurima gets a full set and it has all the cards, I think mono Shurima is going to be completely viable. But right now, there's just not enough payoff for going mono Shurima. So it makes it tough playing the Sun Disc decks.
Sure. As I said, I like to play fun things down where I'm at. So that's what I end up doing. And just the last topic of discussion that I wanted to get y'all's insights on. Recently in the Twitter community, in Runeterra, there's been a lot of discussion over kind of how the meta is developing, especially on the ladder. Some people are saying that the meta has been unhealthy because it's too either hyper aggro or hyper control, and others have been complaining about the fact that once they queue up and they see their opponent's deck, they already know they're going to win or to lose. Coming from other card games, I know that like laddering is kind of like a new concept in that sense, but do y'all feel like this is something that Riot needs to like try and change with the next patch in terms of like changing the meta game, or is this just the reality of the ladder? You know, like you're going to play your top deck and there's going to be people that are going to bring the deck that counters it. And if you happen to sit against them, so be it. That's the way ladder goes. What's your opinions on all this?
So I have been laddering and playing in like big tournaments for a long time now. And you're always going to run into the person that brings the deck that just stomps your deck. It happens. And that's not going to change no matter what the meta is. So people can complain that they get rolled by a certain deck, but it just, no matter what you play, you're going to have a deck that gets rolled by that deck. So there's nothing to really change in that sense. You can't fight the ocean for a phrase there. So this meta might be a bit more aggro inclined, but there are still very viable control decks, and there are still viable mid-range decks. So I think it's some confirmation bias that they lose to aggro decks, but you should be more open-minded to the bigger picture. And I think this meta is fairly healthy overall, from at least my experience. Saucy, I'm sure you can add more to that, but from what I've seen, healthy enough.
What'd you think, Saucy?
So whenever people complain about that as a thing, that's card games. So maybe card games aren't for you. Because I'm sorry, but there's like in competitive card games and in Runeterra, if a deck is winning 55% of the time, that's considered a tier 1 deck, which means you're not gonna win every game. Like that's just how card games work. There are no decks that have no counters, and if there were, that they just get nerfed. It's not Runeterra, it's every card game. I mean, if you've ever played Friday Night Magic, you're going to sit down in matchups where you just have a really, really hard time winning. Yep. I don't think there are any matchups that are completely unwinnable, and I think people use it as an excuse to justify them being bad players by complaining about the game's meta.
I 100% agree with that. Like, there's always going to be that one person that just has your number, or the worst player who draws better than you. And it's just a part of the game. Like, you have to take your L's when they come.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Like, even if we're going, like, talking about back the Grand Prix tournament, I was playing the Nasus Kindred deck that I built specifically to beat Thresh Kindred or Thrash Nasus, and then the last game against BBG, or one of the games against him, he was playing Thresh Nasus, and I lost because I drew bad, and like he won the game because it happens in card games. You're gonna lose favorables, you're gonna win unfavorables, and it happens. I think the only decks that we have that are incredibly polarizing right now is Fiora Shin and like Mono Fiora, because those matchups and just how the deck works are very polarizing. So if you do get tilted by polarizing matchups, maybe don't play that specific type of deck. But yeah, I mean, there's never going to be a perfect balance. no deck's going to have no counter. So just like what makes you a better player is learning how to like win in the situations where you shouldn't win, how to play to your outs, learning your matchups, learning your mulligans properly. If you have decided you've been defeated before the game started, you've already lost.
Perfect. I don't think I could have said it literally any better, because that I asked the question, but that's how I also believe, that's how I also feel. Like, this is a card game. Things are random. There's variance and everything. I would say that in terms of all the card games, Runeterra has the least amount of variance, but still, if you don't draw what you need to draw, or if you don't have the cards you need at that moment, it's going to happen. You're going to lose, and it's not really up to Riot to change the meta for that reason. There might be other things that they're going to look into, because I agree with Saucy in terms of the Ledros Dreadway combo, where it creates like too bad of a feels bad moment that they might need to look into. But you said it perfectly, Saucy.
Yeah, and I think if there are like cards that are degenerate or cards that do have an unreasonable interaction, I mean, I'm all for balancing. Like, I think when things get out of hand, they should be balanced. If there is a deck that has like a 75% win rate, it should probably be looked at. And we've had Riot balance things on a feels bad notion before. If you look at when Unyielding Spirit was nerfed, there was no competitive deck that was playing Unyielding Spirit, but it felt so bad to lose to at burst speed, they decided to make the card fast speed. So, I mean, if something feels really terrible to, go against, that should be considered and looked at. If something has too high of a win rate, sure. But there aren't too many situations of that right now. And I think the meta is semi-healthy at the moment, except like I do think the Ledros Dreadway interaction is BS, and like that is super tilting, and I get it. Like, I mean, Mega Mogwai's talked about it ad nauseum.
Oh, for sure.
How much he said if he wasn't making content for Runeterra, he'd quit because of that.
Yeah,
and we've chatted about it, and like I get it. Like, it's frustrating and it's tilting, even though that deck doesn't have like a super high win rate.
And then before we have our send off, I thought this would be an interesting mind experiment. So, Saucy, if you were to create a Saucy Runeterra card, what region would it be? What would its stats be? What would its mana cost be? What would Saucy Mailman look like in Runeterra?
So it's really, really funny that you bring that up, because ever since the first beta of the game, the thing I always said that I wanted a Saucy Mailman card to do would be give your Nexus tough. Every time I ever talked to any of the developers, like anytime I'd be in a call with someone, I'd be like, so when am I going to get to make my Nexus tough? And they just blow me off and laugh. And so now that's a thing. So now I have to remake the Saucy Mailman card. So on the spot, the only thing I could think is I want to be like probably a 3 mana, and I want to have like really bad stats. So I'll be like a 3 mana, like 1/4 or something like that. And I want to double the damage of all puff caps.
Oh my! Of course,
no, that's rancid. No!
Of course.
Because the other one I was going to be, before Hexcore came out, that was my other card, was I was going to be both players draw at the start of the round. But that's a thing now.
Are you listening, right? There it is. That's your next card that you're making next expansion. Yep. 1/4.
Double the puff cap damage. Let's go!
Oh my goodness. And then Kristos, what would your card read?
My card is either a champion with like 0/1 as a stat line for like 3 mana, or a landmark.
Okay.
But it says if you cast a burst card, make a 1/1. Like a young pyromancer effect.
Let's go.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Let's go. Young pyromancer.
Yeah, young pyro is like one of my all-time favorites in Magic. So if we could like do something like that in LOR, that'd be tight.
Oh man,
played a lot of pyromancer Delver.
Yes, sir.
For sure. Perfect. But
what about you? What card are you?
Oh, what card am I?
What kind of card are you?
Yeah.
Most likely, knowing me, I'm going to definitely be some type of overwhelm variant. And I'm probably going to be something on the line along the lines of like, just because once again I did play a lot of like spells, so I would probably be like, I'll start off as a 3-mana 1/1 with overwhelm, and then for every spell that you cast, I'll probably go up +1/+1 until eventually someone breaks that card, and then they're gonna have to nerf me.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
But
ooh, I thought of a new card. Maybe
Okay.
because I don't think anyone's gonna go for doubling mushroom damage. It's probably not gonna happen anytime soon. Do you guys remember original Captain Farron? He turned your entire hand into decimates.
Yes, when it was like 3 or 4. Yes.
I'm gonna turn your entire hand into mushroom clouds.
Oh my God.
Why are you like this?
Timo's biggest fan. When I'm played, I turn all your cards in hand into mushroom clouds.
Okay, you know what? I kind of like it.
Oh my God, that's so funny and so on point. But unfortunately, as always, Summoners, we're gonna have to end the podcast. But Kristos, where can they find us? Where can they interact with us?
We are on the twitter.com at casual_pod, on Stitcher, Podbean, and Spotify at Casual Try Hard Podcast, Legends of Runeterra, or CTHLOR will actually bring us up too. I found that out just the other day, so that's neat.
Oh.
And then I am on Twitter at twitter.com/ChristosIVivo.
Perfect. You can find me over on Twitter, El Charua Rico, or better known as Rico Plays 1723. We also have our YouTube channel up there. Once again, it's Casual Tryhard Legends of Runeterra. And then on our Twitter, we do have our Discord. We have a little bit of a slice of a pie from our mother podcast, which is the MTG podcast. So they gave us a little bit of a slice of that. So come on down. Don't be afraid to interact with us. But Saucy, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can check me out on my website. It's just saucy.live or saucymailman.com, whatever's easier. That's where you can find all of my links to everything that I do all the time. And yeah, I'm literally at all times at my computer doing something. So hit me up on Discord. I'm always around to chat. And let's hang out.
Just talking from experience, folks, Saucy is an absolute scholar and gentleman. This actual podcast was brought to you by actually my wife. So Saucy had mentioned, hey, on his Twitter, hey, I love doing podcasts. If you ever need me in one of them, go ahead and just DM me. And I saw it and I showed my wife and I was like, you know what would be really cool? If like we actually can get, if we can actually get this guy on our podcast, like that would be absolutely mind-boggling. And she's not really in the scene, so she's like, so then why don't you? Simply like, what's the problem here? Just message him and see if he responds. And the whole day I'm like, oh man, should I do it? Should I not? Like, should I send it with a GIF? Like, oh man, but. I just sent a message out to him and he was basically like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And even though he's busy with a whole bunch of content creation, he's been absolutely wonderful to deal with. So when I say that he's someone that you need to follow and interact with, like Saucy is one of the best, without a doubt, no questions asked.
Now I'm blushing.
As always, Summoners, from me, Rico Plays 1723, stay saucy.
And see you next time, Summoners.
Alright, so Saucy, I have to ask you, man, because Kristos is all about this. And I've been asking all the guests as one of the questions before they come on. Have you ever heard of a peanut butter burger?
I mean, obviously, because you're insane if you haven't. Peanut butter burgers are amazing.
Oh my god. Kristos,
And if you want to take it to the next level, what you do is you use a glazed donut as the bun.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Okay.
I respect the hell out of this take. Burger and donut is delicious.
Yes.
It is sweet. The peanut butter has like a little like turbo boost of flavor, and then burger is just burger deliciousness.
It's burger,
like,
yeah.
It's so good. Like if you haven't had the peanut butter burger, do it. And then like the fresh plain Krispy Kremes. Saucy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
if
now,
you know.
Yep.
So now we're going to specific brands. So you're telling me
yeah.
I need to go buy Krispy Kreme glazed donut.
A hot Krispy Kreme, best thing in the world.
Oh,
Okay.
they're so good. They're like they have no like there's nothing to it. It's just like you ate it and you're like, was that a donut or was that air?
You can eat 12 more. That's the best part.
Yeah, and then you're like, I just ate 12 donuts.